Hey guys, it's Scott here. Welcome to a quick video on Pink TV. I'm not going to give you a super long introduction. I'm getting ready to interview Will Clark. Will and LaShonda, his wife, are out of Missouri, St. Louis, somewhere in that area. Branson, I think, is the actual city. Did an amazing subject to deal. Had a $94,000 check they took home. How many of you bring home $94,000 checks at once? How many people ever bring that kind of money home in one lump sum? Will did. Congratulations to he and his wife. They deserve it. Couldn't have been better people. You're going to enjoy this interview. He gave you some great tidbits about the video, or excuse me, about the deal, some of the takeaways he got, lessons he's learned, some really good stuff, insightful, and a big smile on his face because he just put 94 grand in his bank account. Will, thank you for joining me. Pleasure to have you. Good to see you again. And anyway, how are you first and foremost?
Very blessed as always. I know that's one of my favorite, sayings because I like to just spread the joy. So
Absolutely. You know what I found a long time ago is when you aren't having the best day and someone asks you, how are you? And you say, oh man, it's been one of those days. And all of a sudden it like reinforces it in your mind. And I learned a long time ago, even if you're having a crummy day and you say, I'm blessed, or I'm having a great day, or all of a sudden you like immediately your whole like MO kind of perks up a bit. So anyway, I'm blessed as well, man. So, and I guess when you put a big check in your bank account, like you did with this house over on Stoll Drive, that usually can help with a smile. Is that a safe assumption?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that kind of helps make things go real well for a while. So,
I tell you, and I think for a lot of people in the world, and I'm getting a little philosophical and deep here, money isn't necessarily what people aspire to. Now you have some that's all they aspire to, but it's that necessary evil in the world. It makes the world go around. And so when you have money and you have access to money and your financial house, when your financial house is in order, life as a whole is better, no matter what you're facing, because that's obviously the core of it. So I can imagine that would make a little difference. So, well, I think my first question here, and I want to just kind of run through the deal, somewhat high level, but this is a question that I actually had prior, and I'll ask again. Have you ever had a bigger check in one lump sum than you got on this property?
no.
Got it. Didn't think so. Most people don't bring in chunk money, right? Most people have a job, they make their paychecks, and they save, and they do things over time. And even when you have rental properties, you're generating a revenue, but usually not big chunks. And so when you have the ability to put a big check in your bank, usually it's not an occurrence that happens every month. Although you probably wouldn't be upset if it happened every month. I'm sure I wouldn't be upset either. So it was a big check. And so anyway, well, I guess a couple of thoughts come to mind regarding the deal. The one thing that sticks out, Will, the most, I think you guys had come down here for a visit, and down in Jacksonville to spend a couple of days with us here solo. And as I recall, when the deal came in, it was kind of what we all considered almost like a DOA, dead on arrival. Guy was behind in payments. Recollection and numbers don't have to be exact, but probably upwards of 10 grand, give or take, if not more than that. And so when someone comes to you in that scenario or status where they're already that far behind, and now you have to not only, if the deal makes sense, take control of it and then market it, ultimately find an end user, whether it's a tenant or buyer. And in this case, it was a buyer or lease purchase type buyer. Now you have time on the market to market it and find that person and close. So when they come to you and they're 10 grand behind, you've got another 60 days before it's really going to be able to be cured, which means that 10 grand is only more. And so, but am I fairly accurate with those numbers and kind of how you assessed it when you first came in?
Oh yeah. Yeah. When we first talked to you about this particular deal, we felt like it was dead in the water because, at the time, the owner was almost 12,000 in arrears on his payment. And so when we talked to you, you just kind of started laying things out, saying, these are some different options that we can look at, but let's make sure that this is going to be beneficial. And so once you started laying things out and we started going over everything, things started looking a little bit better. So I'm very glad that we were down there when this came in. That way we could sit down and kind of go over that as a group. So.
Yeah. And had you ever heard of a subject to before?
No.
PINK? Most people haven't, right? What the
Yeah.
subject to, what does that mean, right? So I'm not sure it's even in Webster's. You look up the dictionary, I don't think it might be in there, but so it's a strategy that is something we kind of call the unicorn, because it has a lot of components of investing. You actually take legal title of the property. You're buying it subject to the underlying mortgage remaining on the property, which is still the borrower or the seller's responsibility. We agree to take those over. So in most cases, there's not really any money out of pocket. And I know in this case, we utilize the buyer's funds for the most part to catch up the mortgage. So you have a buyer come in, put money down, that catches up back payments, you step into the deal. It's not always rainbows and butterflies. And I've always been, I like to paint both sides of the picture. I always say, if this were easy as pie, everyone would do it. But I think once you get through the initial workload and you have a buyer in there, for the most part, it's somewhat streamlined, and you have a little work to do at the end as well. But never heard of subject to. We start laying out some options. And do you recall if the seller liked the fact that we had options for them to look at?
He was a bit skeptical.
Okay.
After talking with him, you could tell he had, extensive knowledge in business. I mean, he had gone through multiple businesses, had a winery and a whole bunch of other things. But ultimately, the home actually was a home that his son had purchased. And then his son went through a divorce and could no longer make the payments. But the home was actually, their mortgage was in his name. And so therefore, he was having a hard time just making the payments. And when we stepped in, and I think it was the discussion that, it was a conference call we had on the phone with him, and you explained what we wanted to do, I think he kind of got a little bit more open to what we could do.
Yeah. And then ultimately the deal came together and ultimately blossomed here recently. So when it came to some of the communications early on, and I guess this would be kind of something for I guess current and maybe potential future affiliates of ours. How was your coach? I know you had one of my favorites, Kyle, as your coach. Did Kyle just share a little bit about Kyle, if you would, and his role and his involvement with some of the heavy lifting when it came to this deal, and certainly just working with you guys, on a weekly basis.
Yeah, Kyle was awesome. I mean, as a person and as a whole, Kyle's just a phenomenal person.
I agree.
He will literally bend over backwards to help anybody out, and that was part of what we just loved about Kyle. But he had a lot of knowledge coming with a real estate background, and having a lot of deals similar to this in the past. I mean, he really helped us take the right steps, make sure and protect ourselves, and at the same time make a good deal for everybody. So I mean, it went really, really well.
Good. Kind of stopped you from stepping in piles of and
Oh yeah.
and making sure that the things stayed on the right path. So yeah, well, he's couldn't agree more. Great human being. We're lucky to have him as a coach. Brings a ton of knowledge and experience to the table, and ultimately we feel very blessed to have him as a coach that gets to work with our affiliates. And so as far as the deal is concerned, at the end of the day, I know we probably would share a picture of that check just for the sake of memorializing it. And I got to tell you, that was a pretty genuine looking smile on your face. I don't think that was fake. So
That was great.
So I think as far as other questions, the details of the deal are something that I think are of interest, but this was not so much wanting to dive in to the absolute details, more kind of just sharing what the deal as a whole looked like. So just kind of walk through it. Deal comes into the system. By the way, where did the deal come from? I know we had talked about this recently, or at least I think I did recall we talked about it, but remember where the lead originated from? Was it one that was generated, or was something that you guys had?
No, the lead actually originated. We had gone looking at some properties, and we kind of stumbled across this one that had it for sale by owners. So we called it up, and that was when we started talking with the owner. And he kind of started giving us a backstory. We went and met with him, kind of discussed everything. And this was prior to us coming to Florida. But when we first went in and looked at the home, and started talking about what we wanted to do, that's when he started giving us, what we thought at that time was the dead on arrival bad news, because he was so far
Behind all these payments. So yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, but yeah, that's how we kind of came across
Okay.
that one.
So takeaway for others that are watching this are you driving down the street, you see a for sale by owner sign, and you know there's not an agent involved, at least not by the marketing you saw. And you pick up the phone and have a conversation with the seller. In this case, you ran across a deal that ultimately bore or bared, whatever the proper vernacular is, a lot of fruit at the end of the day. So literally, you call it a chance encounter, but you just were doing what you should have been doing, which is driving down the street, you see a FSBO sign, you take a picture of it, you call them. Same thing if you saw a vacant property. I was out driving with my 16-year-old. Yes, I was driving and she wasn't. Don't ask me how she doesn't have her license, Will, but it's like not even on her radar right now. I can't understand that. But when I got my license like on the day of my birthday. How about you?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And our daughter was the same way. She was like, "I'm 16. I want my license."
Come on, why not? My daughter, she's content having dad and mom chauffeur her around. I guess that's not such a bad gig, right? So, but we were driving the other night and literally saw 2 vacant properties, took a picture of them, and we're putting them into our system to track. But FSBOs that don't have agents involved, for sale by owners, have the potential to deal directly with the seller. You just never know what you're going to get. And in this case, you had a guy that had what I would consider financially distressed property. I don't know that I'm considering that that's the case. It wasn't necessarily physically distressed. It was only a few years old, if I recall, right? Like 4 or 5 years.
Oh yeah.
Good shape
about a
overall.
5-year-old property.
And the overall condition was what?
It was really good. The overall condition at the time was really good.
So you have a great property, 4 or 5 years old, so technically brand new, and in good condition. It just had fallen behind in payments. And so as far as subject twos are concerned, that to me is always the metric that, and it's a question people always ask is, why would someone give you their property, deed you their property, leave the mortgage in place? Well, it's an exchange. It's a tit for a tat. There's got to be some motivation. In this case, he was getting ready to lose to foreclosure or something down that path of not making payments to the point where it's going to be foreclosed. And then you've got a foreclosure on your record for however many years, and all your other credit goes to, the wrong way, and it affects a lot of things, and even trying to rent a place after that can be really challenging. So in order to kind of get the deal to make sense, we agree to catch up the payments. He agrees to deed us the property. And so Will, from the time that you put it under contract to the time you got a check here in the past 30 days or however recent it was, what was the value increase in that deal? And we acknowledge that there's been some blessings on the valuations of properties over COVID. Who'd have thunk, right? But at the end of the day, it's what it is. It's what the market did. From the time you put under contract to buy and ultimately bought it to when you sold and transferred legal title, you remember the value difference that ultimately was that occurred there?
Yeah, we originally went into contract with the owner at 264, and then when we closed, the final deal was 389.
Yep, there it is. And there, thus a nice spread.
Yes, very much.
Very good, very good. And so I guess if there were any things that come to mind for you that might be of value to some of the other folks that we will share this with, and from a training standpoint, what would it be? What was your, I'd love you to just kind of just share a couple of thoughts on the deal, and maybe any sort of takeaways, any things that you might want to share that could be good lessons or inspirational or anything that may come to mind.
Yeah, for me, the biggest thing was just knowing that no matter what situation we found ourselves in, Kyle was just a text away. Once we shot him a text, I mean, it was within an hour, hour and a half, sometimes even quicker than that. He was very responsive, getting back to us immediately. I mean, if we needed to talk to him and called him, he would pick up the phone right away. So
you were in good hands.
Yeah. So the coaching is huge, and everything that we learned from Little Pink, I mean, part of our growth, mine and my wife both, is just to try and learn as much as we can so that we can do what we need to do to make our lives better. And so every step we take, we always learn something. And we learned a great deal with Little Pink. So we were very grateful for that.
Wonderful. And as far as any sort of details about the deal, other than that big check at the end of the day, anything that you would share in regards to that, and maybe you already answered it, there's the support that you needed, but I guess I'm just looking if there were any other details that might come to mind about the deal, any other lessons that maybe you learned through this that might be good for others to know.
Yeah, and I mean, don't give up. This was not a deal that happened over the course of 3 months, 6 months, or even 12 months or 18 months. This deal happened. We went through 2 different buyers, and then ultimately we wound up selling it on the market. So, even though you go through a couple of buyers, the first one doesn't pan out, the second one doesn't pan out, we still made money on the deal. And ultimately, in the end, it's 3.5 years later, and we sold the property and made a very large profit. So main thing is just don't give up. Stick with the program, do the deal, and work it.
It's almost like a mantra for life too. It's persevering. It's being tenacious. It's not giving up when, if there's a bump in the road, or if there's a curveball that gets thrown your way, or, really anything you want to put, sports teams. I know your girls play sports, and I suspect you've had some coaching in there. I see a smile on your face, and I'm coaching my 9-year-old, but it's how you respond to any adversity, but it's sticking with it. And I think that's the one thing that people in the real estate space don't maybe say enough. Everyone wants to sell you the greatest, the shiny object, and the latest and greatest, but tried and true, but also sticking with it, persevering, even when things don't go exactly according to plan. And then you experience the result, which is, I don't want to minimize, because that was a beautiful check, but when you execute the plan, when you stick to it, and you have properties like this, that you've played your cards right, you've bought it, you own legal title, and now you have control of it, even when things don't go well or perfect, which never anything does. It's that tenacity and stick-to-itiveness that I think makes the difference. And so, again, I could apply that to so many different things. And so, that's just a great takeaway. Well, Will, couldn't happen to a nicer guy, and you and LaShonda, never met your girls, but I mean, they come from as good a parents as they could ever have asked for. So, you guys deserve this success, and I'm glad. I think you just said prior to filming, you guys went on a little vacation. Is that correct? You and the wife, little anniversary vacation?
Yes, sir. Yeah, we just celebrated our 18-year anniversary, and we took a trip down to St. Pete. So it was pretty nice.
Fantastic. Well deserved, and certainly, my best to LaShonda as well. So, listen, this was kind of the essence of what I wanted to capture, which is just really, just walking through it, and trying to use this for how we can, share your success and some of your lessons, good and bad, with other people that are in our sphere of influence. And so, I appreciate your time. I appreciate you sharing openly, and again, man, kudos on the deal. And I'm gonna give you an a virtual high five. Can I get a virtual high five? All right, buddy. Will, thank you, man. It's been a pleasure. And again, kudos on the deal, and way to stick to it, and stick with it, and persevere. And again, the results kind of speak for themselves. So, all right, Will, appreciate the time, and look forward to the next time as well. All right. Well, I hope you enjoyed my talk with Will here, and some of the details of his deal. If you would like to find those types of deals, if you want to be the one smiling in that picture with that big check for $94,000, and you want to look for subject to properties, let me just give you a very quick little nugget here. Again, I share this in the video with Will, but subject to deals where the seller is transferring legal title to you, and leaving the mortgage in place, which is what a subject to is. You're buying the home subject to the underlying mortgage remaining on the property, which means the seller is still responsible. Technically, you're taking over that responsibility, and in exchange for that, you are taking legal title to the property. The best types of subject to deals come from folks that are behind in their mortgage payments. That is a motivation that is somewhat unique to these types of deals. Properties that are good candidates for subject to either are physically or financially distressed. Physically means it needs work. However, people can do work if there's no mortgage or free and clear. But when they aren't free and clear, they have a mortgage, they're behind in payments, the bank comes a knocking. That's when the motivation is ultimately started. And now you have a motivated seller. Key to real estate, finding motivated sellers. So you can find folks that are 90 days behind in payments. They're called NODs, notice of defaults. Folks that are in a pre-foreclosure situation, which is kind of the next step. Lis pendens is a Latin term, I believe, or Greek term that's used down here in Florida, which is, again, kind of the initiating of a foreclosure. All of those types of buzz phrases, if you will, simply mean the buyer or the seller in the property is behind in payments. You can find those lists, you can buy those lists, you can send letters. In this case, we'll just happen to be driving down the street, saw the property. But absolutely, if you want to look for subject to properties, you want to look for people who are behind in payments. And you can find those lists pretty easily. You do some mailers, and ultimately you may find the right opportunity. You too can make a $94,000 check. Now, if you like the concept of subject to, you want to learn more about it, I have a course. It's a great course. It's the best that's on the market. I can tell you that. That's my own opinion, but it just is chock full of everything you need to go out and do deals. You want to go do subject to deals, buy the course. It'll walk you through contract scripts, process, flow, the whole 9 yards, even how you talk to your attorney about the deal and how it is going to work. If you'd like to work with us in a greater capacity, we have opportunities to work with some of our coaches. As you heard in that video, we'll really praise one of our coaches, Kyle. We can put you with Kyle as well. We have some other great coaches also. If you want to be one of our partners, one of our affiliate partners, and have this pretty awesome pink logo on your clothes and have pink all over your office like mine, we do have opportunities where you can actually partner with us and become one of our affiliate partners in your market. If you have any interest in any of those, there'll be some information here in this video or in this description that you can find how to reach us, Little Pink House of America. We'd love to talk to you, love to work with you, love to get you started on your own path. As I said with Will, when your financial house is in order at home, your rest of your life is you're in better shape. It all starts with having excess cash and cash flow, and obviously having your financial house in order. So I hope you got some value from the video. I hope you got some value from that little takeaway or nugget at the end. And if you have interest in talking to us more, you let us know. Aside from that, we will see you on the next video. Thanks.